Just when it couldn't get more blatant, more egregious, more in your face how the U.S. military industrial complex wants to control everything, we now have this new headline that talks about how the U.S. military is going to go through 350 billion social media messages to find out how they could manipulate social movements. Of course, they're doing this all in the disguise of protecting democracy. And there's actual people out there arguing that this is good, that this project that's going to analyze the billions of messages and millions of users' postings is somehow great, when in all reality, it's most likely going to work in a way not to understand how social media and social movements start up, but ultimately how to start and stop them when they may or may not work in the bigger geopolitical corporate globalist agenda that we have seen waged on by this administration and the other administrations before him. But before we do, this is a perfect time to talk about the Brave browser, which, by the way, we have an affiliate code. And if you start using a Brave browser, which, by the way, is focused on privacy, unlike Facebook, that ultimately is giving the U.S. military industrial complex everything they want in this project. But the Brave browser is really something to look into. Just by downloading it, you don't have to spend any money. You can actually get paid for watching advertisements that you want to watch, that you are interested in, that are not figured out to track, tracing, and databasing you, and actually earn cryptocurrencies through that way. And you actually would support us by doing that with this affiliate code. Again, the Brave browser will be in the description below, and it's something really worth considering since I've been using it nonstop, and it's a lot better than all the other corporatist track, trace, and databasing browsers out there. Now, going into this story, holy cow, there's so much propaganda, there's so much disinformation. This is, again, a project that experts are saying will be important to defend against adversaries seeking to undermine our democracy and create division within Western societies. No, it's not. When has the U.S. military-industrial complex, when has the U.S. military cared about democracy? When that is always the excuse to go into a place, bomb the crap out of it, while giving lucrative military contracts to rebuild it after bombing it to smithereens with bombs worth millions of dollars on literal tents that are worth no more than $5. And individuals caught up in the middle of it are sadly the cannon fodder for the bigger economic interests of the corporate globalists who finance and, of course, profit of war. How more blatant could they get here, Jason? I mean, seriously, are they like, how more in your face could they get than what they're doing right now?
You know, that good old Trump administration that saved us from the swamp and stopped all the spying on Americans. I'm so grateful for them. So people understand what this project is. This is a Department of Defense project, a large project, an ongoing one that's been around for a while. And they've got the Department of the Navy working on this specific issue, right? So they're going to look at a truncated set of, I believe it's July 2014 to, I believe, December 2016, mainly looking at our past presidential election. Don't worry, they're not going to look at our private messages, bullshiz, and they're not going to actually name any individuals. Look, this is a project that's already kind of been going on a larger level. They're just specifying a data set to try to propagate a paper that, in my opinion, is going to show interference from foreign intelligence groups and show how dangerous the Russians are again. But that's just my guess.
Well, again, we're guessing here. What I think the more likely scenario here is a different one. I'm going to go over that in a little bit. But Facebook is giving all this information. I wouldn't be surprised if your private information is in there. But again, they're saying, oh, you won't be identified. It's okay. Again, already Facebook, Google, all these other large technocratic companies give everything to the government to see, track, trace, and database on a federal level, and even sometimes on a local level, with local police departments using Facebook, working with Facebook to go after petty criminals. But what I think this is really all about, because they're talking about understanding social movements, how social movements start up. If you understand how a social movement starts and how it stops, you now have the ability to know what could be manipulated, which big social media companies do, to start one and to stop one. So, for an example, if there's a social movement like the Yellow Vest movement, which has been against the Rothschild banking, Macron president, which has been against austerity, which has been against the European Union in some parts, which has been calling for Brexit, which has been calling against anti-establishment policies, and has brought together the left and right together. Well, that's a movement that most likely the U.S. military-industrial complex or the greater globalist kind of structures out there, they'll be like, yeah, the Yellow Vests, we understand how this starts. Let's make sure that this doesn't start. Let's make sure the algorithms, let's make sure the social media platforms that are already very manipulated to extort you, to depress you, to make money off of you, let's make sure that this Yellow Vest movement doesn't start. Oh, there's some rumblings in Syria? It's by Wahhabists and jihadis and al-Nusra and al-Qaeda and ISIS. Well, you know what? Let's paint that up in a pretty picture. Let's make sure that this social movement starts to get rid of Bashar al-Assad, which has been the greater geopolitical goal of the United States to somehow protect democracy and humanitarian rights, which is all bullcrap. The main point I'm trying to get here, the U.S. military-industrial complex lies time and time again. They lied in Syria. They lied in Iraq. They lied in Afghanistan. They lied in Iraq even before that. They lied in Vietnam. They lied so many times, and they cannot be trusted. Trump, your Lord and Savior, QAnon Lord of them all. He can't be trusted, as he just declared an emergency. He literally declared an emergency declaration. Why? Because he needed to sidestep Congress and allow an arms deal to continue with Saudi Arabia. My goodness, golly grace. In the United Kingdom, there's leaflets, information going out. If you're an extremist, what to look out for by the government there in the UK. And yet they include things like inaccurately generalizing things about the left or government. Oh, you do that, you might be an extremist. Again, this whole track trace database system, it's all for power. This is far beyond that. This is not just track trace and database. This is analyze, understand, start, and prevent when it works in our favor and not in our favor. This is dangerous, and this is powers that should be restricted to no one. These are godlike powers to start protest movements, to start social movements that will have an impact. And the U.S. military researching, analyzing, understanding it, should terrify the crap out of everyone with how manipulated and how hungry and lustful they are for every single power that they could grab away from you. Am I being too crazy here, Jason?
I'm not a big fan of this administration at this point. I mean, we were supposed to drain the swamp, and we're doing anything but. When the Congress and Senate vote to leave the conflict in Yemen by stopping these sales to Saudi Arabia, hey, emergency declaration, no big deal. This section right here were 22 arms deals worth about $8 billion. No biggie, no big money and death and destruction here that our president continues to push. And let's not forget, right now with the situation in Iran, there are several reports that we're talking about 1,500 soldiers, maybe up to 10,000 soldiers. Well, thank God we still have people like Rand Paul who are at least saying, hey, more troops in the Middle East will not stop these endless wars. And he's tweeting about it. I strongly urge Donald Trump to reconsider more troops to the Middle East. The escalation doesn't get us out of our decades-long, seemingly endless wars, Mr. President. Trust your instincts and follow what you ran on, not the neocons around who want to repeat past mistakes. Luke?
Well, he's not going to do that. He's going to talk a good game to convince people that there's some kind of larger conspiracy out there, that he's working on some 5D, 6D frickin' chess. He's not. He's talking a good game, but at the same time, that's one step forward, two step backwards into promoting the military-industrial complex. And I really don't believe the president matters. I believe he's just a figurehead, and he's a perfect one that has divided and conquered the protest movements to where literally left-wingers are calling for war. Rachel Maddow's like, yeah, John Bolton's great, because of how idiotic and asinine this entire situation has been brought forward to us. And I do believe there is something to say about the larger effects of people now not being anti-war, not being anti-intervention, when, of course, that's what he used to get into the political office. But there's a larger manipulation here that I believe is happening here, because if you look at everything that's happening with Donald Trump, it's working in the pure benefit of the state, of the military-industrial complex, and created a situation when any form of resistance is totally wiped out and destroyed because of this hyperbolic left-right divide and conquer agenda that has people fighting over who could use a bathroom. not over how many people should be bombed, not fighting over, hey, now we won't even understand how many innocent civilians have been killed with the drone program, which Trump just did as well, or bombed another country. No, that's not important. Who's going to tinkle and where, or take a deuce where? That's the important topic of discussion, you idiots. What is wrong with people? Like, seriously, like, when you look at the larger perspective of things, like, things have digressed to a very dangerous level, and it's only becoming more dangerous with the military analyzing, trying to understand the start and stop of social movements, which, of course, they will abuse. It goes without saying they will abuse that for their own personal benefit, without a doubt. That's my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. I have nothing else to say. Jason, do you want to close it off here?
Yeah, folks, I want to remind everybody, Bilderberg 2019 is coming up, although they have not announced the date or the location yet. The rumblings from our inside sources think it's going to be happening this coming weekend, possibly in Ottawa. Don't quote me on either of those things. Those are coming from two separate journalistic sources. But hey, we're about halfway to our goal. If it is in the United States, Mexico, or Canada, I'll be on the ground with Luke. If not, Luke will be there whether we find out on 1 day's notice or 10 days notice. I promise you that. And we intend to give you the best, most coverage of this because, hey, these are the people that are actually pulling the strings behind the scenes. These are the real military-industrial complex. They are the ones bringing you those DoD programs and those wars in the Middle East. So, guys, if you want to support us, that's a great way to do it. Go check out that GoFundMe and get out there and be the change you want to see in the world.